Many thanks for joining us in today's edition of One Slot. I am Rita Omodia. Now, have you heard about the ICC? Well, not the International Chamber of Commerce, definitely not the International Cricket Council, but the International Criminal Court. Presently with 14 defendants at large, 31 cases, 14 investigations, 2 preliminary examinations, the International Criminal Court, ICC, founded in 1998 and seated in The Hague, Netherlands, seeks to investigate and, where warranted, tries individuals charged with the gravest crimes of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. As of March 2022, 123 countries have officially ratified the establishment of the ICC and are states parties to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. The ICC has indicted more than 40 individuals, all from African countries. Now, while the ICC maintains that it remains a legal institution to ensure justice to all victims of war crimes, some Pan-Africanist groups have consistently accused the ICC of bias against African leaders and an imperialist encroachment of African sovereignty. So the question arises, have cases before the ICC been fair for all or selective? Is Africa really a soft target for the ICC? Stick around on today's edition of One Slot for this discussion. Join us for today's topic, Africa cases before the ICC, fairness for all or selective justice. We have the pleasure of having an African affairs analyst, Dr. David Matsanga. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much, all our viewers across the planet. Thank you very much for inviting me to discuss this important matter which touches Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Matsanga, let's go back to the drawing board. We're talking about the ICC, which was established by the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court in 1998, but began sittings on July 1, 2002. Now, what were some of the underlying issues that led to the establishment of this international court?
First of all, I want to tell the world that I was one of the few members of people, or among the people who joined the International Criminal Court, the chief prosecutor in the Rome capital, Italy, when we were inaugurating the International Criminal Court in 1998. I was present with Kofi Annan and others who were actually present, and most of us had been called. The aim of International Criminal Court was simple, was to tell the world that there will be no crime left unattended to. We shall bring all the criminals or crimes against humanity, war criminals, people who had genocide, those who had committed human rights abuses. At that time, you know very well, there were lots of human rights abuses. One-party states in Africa all enjoying the privileges of most of the people on the African continent. And as a result, the late Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, told the people that, no, let's do one thing. Let's get this court going. And then we all agreed. We went to Rome and we signed the treaty. Everybody, each country signed the treaty. Some of us were activists who wanted this court to work. But I'm just going to tell you, I am sorry. And I want to tell the world that I regret why I joined that meeting on that day in July in Rome, near the Vatican, where we had assembled in one of the halls where we signed this treaty.
Okay, Dr. Matsanga, definitely we're going to go deeper into all of this, but let's still look at the powers of the ICC? I mean, what exactly is its jurisdiction, the ICC? Because you talk about the reason why the ICC was created was to make sure that no crimes were unattended to. What is the jurisdiction of the ICC?
The ICC was created as a complementary court. It was not created to usurp the powers of national courts. It was created in the format that courts in Africa, courts in the whole world will complement with the ICC and sit down if there is anything that they cannot charge in their courts, then it can complement and help the international courts. But it was not created to usurp national sovereignty states, the sovereignty of the states of Africa. My disagreement, and I'm the only one south of Sahara in Africa who registered my complaints against ICC. You can check the ICC website, you will find about 32 applications, 32 opposing statements. One as whistleblower telling the world that this is a very dangerous organization for African people, for African nations, the 34 states of Africa that had actually ratified the treaty. Now there are 33 because Burundi has left, and the Burundi quit under Article 127 of the Rome Statute and left. It was created.
Dr. Matsanga, when you talk about the sovereignty of Africa, and you're saying that the ICC is usurping the sovereignty of Africa, the sovereignty of Africa, if you agree with me, is to protect the citizens of the people. And one of the jurisdictions of the ICC is a referral from the member states, and of course, powers are also given to the prosecutors. So why would you say that the sovereignty of African states have been usurped by the ICC when most of the cases have been brought forward by the member states? I mean, if you look at Sudan, it was the member states that brought about this case. So why would you say ICC is usurping Africa's sovereignty?
There are two types of bringing the case to the ICC. A referral by the state and a referral by the United Nations Security Council. And then there is another method where the chief prosecutor can enter your state under Article 13 or something like that. Yes, he comes and takes the people which he feels. So those are the powers that I oppose, and those are the powers that I continue to oppose up to today until I go to my grave. A chief prosecutor who's selected, not called on merit, but selected on boardroom operations, and the boardroom that this state, this time it is Africa, this time it is Asia, this time it is America, no, not America, this time is Europe. That type of chief prosecutor is a dangerous prosecutor. Two, the powers of a chief prosecutor in the ICC are in one place. The prosecutor does investigations, the prosecutor does appearance, the prosecutor seeks sentencing, the prosecutor also looks after witnesses, the prosecutor does all the things. This is a court without any route where you can go. This is a court, powers are invested in one woman or one man who can actually just come and look for tall people, short people, African, take them. Why I am saying the sovereignty of Africa has been infringed is ask one question. The permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, out of the 5, only 2 have signed the treaty, ratified the treaty. I can name for you. America refused. China refused. Russia refused. Now, who are you, an African country who's still looking for money for hospital to sign a treaty as big as ICC when an American who is paying for the ICC has rejected an American to be taken to that court? And you are running with your signature and signing in Africa. We have a problem here in African continent. Then we have the same problem in the United Nations Security Council. The same members of the United Nations Security Council can now identify a country in the world and say, we want you to go and fetch Mr. Bashir from Khartoum. Pick him from Khartoum and bring him to us. Yet the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, plus the others rotational, some of them are not members of the International Criminal Court. Their citizens are never taken to this court.
Okay, now
why do you want our Africans, we Africans, to be taken there? What for?
Okay. Now, Dr. Matsanga, on that particular issue, I'm still coming to the issue that the fact that the cases have been brought forward by the ICC, were they not member states that brought it to the ICC? And for the United States of America, when you talked about it not being part of the ICC, now, according to the Constitution of the United States, it says that it would violate the Constitution of the United States where the trial of U.S. citizens for some committed on U.S. soil, which are otherwise entirely within judicial powers of the United States. So one of the reasons why the United States is not part of the ICC is that it violates the Constitution. So do you still have a problem with that?
Yes, a very big problem. Because the United States comes and kills people. The United States of America has killed people in Afghanistan, Iraq. George Bush ordered for people to kill, maim the people in Iraq. Has he been taken to court? American troops were in Iraq, Afghanistan. You heard of the crimes that were committed. Have they been taken to court? No. So why should you want Africans to be taken to court? Why can't Africans take their own people? If the United States of America Constitution gives the Americans the chance to be tried in on American soil, why should America tell us to airlift our presidents to land them in The Hague? Tell me which English I did not study.
But there were protests, Dr. Matsanga, there were protests by African countries for these particular leaders you're talking about. So there was a protest from the people. It's not just the United States talking here.
No, the United States put pressure. It put money. You know, 3/4.
How many citizens did the United States bribe for these protests that happened? If you're saying the United States were the perpetrators of these protests that happened, how many citizens would the United States have bribed if you're saying this?
Look, let me tell you, my sister, about a quarter of the salaries of the International Criminal Court is paid by the US. Yes. Another quarter is paid by George Soros. He's an American citizen. Yes. Another quarter is paid by France. France pays 3/4 of the salaries and all allowances and for the judges and everything of the ICC. Now you tell me, why should one country pay salary to the judges, to the court, and then fail to take its people to that court? And then you want us in Africa go take our presidents instead of charging them on African soil.
Now, Dr. Matsanga, does the ICC have jurisdiction over non-party states? Because these African countries that are brought before the ICC, they are party states to the Roman statutes. Does the ICC have jurisdiction over non-party states?
No, the ICC has no powers to come into any country except through the route of the United Nations Security Council. And that's what I've just explained to you. If ICC wants to go to Zimbabwe, if ICC wants to go to Ethiopia, if ICC wants to go to Eritrea, Sudan, it has to go to the United Nations Security Council and call for the United Nations Security Council and to tell them that there is a criminal who has killed so many people in such a country X, or there is a war and the human rights abuses are being committed. Can you give me permission as the chief prosecutor, Mr. Karim Khan, to go in such a country and pick President Buhari or pick president so and so, or pick another president. It has no powers. For Buhari, for Nigeria, the ICC has signed an agreement with the Nigerian government. Therefore, it can come as a complementary court. It can come and take your president tomorrow. If your courts are not working, are not charging him, or they are not charging other people. That's why you see the courts in America made it very clear in the Constitution that you cannot just wake up in the morning, or Israel. For example, the ICC cannot go to Israel. That's why you see there is a standoff now. You can't go to Israel and Tel Aviv and pick Mr. Netanyahu and take him to the ICC. It will be impossible. You need to seek permission from the Security Council. And then the worst thing, Rita, is the Security Council itself has members who don't like the same ICC, but they push you to take Africa, any leader, out of these 40 Africans have been taken to this court. They took Babugo, the standards that you see, they took Babugo, they left Quattara. Mr. Quattara and Mr. Babugo should have gone on the same plane. This is my point for Africa. Yes, both of them committed crimes against humanity. But what ICC came to do in Cote d'Ivoire, it came and picked Mr. Babuko and left Mr. Quattara. Whereas in Europe, we picked Bosnians and take Croatians and Serbs. We take all sides. Why do you come to Africa and choose one side? Because the French who paid you the salary have told you, don't touch Qatar.
Okay, with all these things you're saying about the International Criminal Court, I mean, we also have the International Criminal Court of Justice. Do you think that things should have been left at the International Criminal Court of Justice rather than bringing the International Criminal Court into all of this?
International Court of Justice, Rita, has now powers, zero powers. It is as useless as anything. And it is not even, it can't say enforce an agreement. It can't enforce a judgment. They cannot enforce a judgment. You know, the judgment of Nigeria and Cameroon over the oil boundary. You had to go back and talk about the oil, and but it has no enforcement. But ICC has got warrants that once you have signed, or once the ICC, the United Nations Security Council has said something, you must appear in that court. Whether you are wrongly accused, like most of the cases of Africa, Rita, I'm telling you, if we go through this, my dear sister, if I tell you the injustices that had been committed by that court on Africans, you can cry tears.
Definitely. We're going to go deeper into this, Dr. David Matsanga, because you actually had a letter written to the United Nations Secretary General, but just hold on that thought. We'll take a quick break right now as we have just taken a dive at what the ICC is, the role of the International Criminal Court, and where its jurisdiction lies. After this break, we will take our discuss the credibility and effectiveness of the ICC. Do stay tuned.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
ICC is a jurisdiction of last resort. This has been our conversation so far. And we've been looking at the cases at the ICC, especially African cases. Have they been fair for all or selective? And we've also had in the studio with us Dr. David Matsanga looking at at the jurisdiction of the ICC, why it was established, and how far the ICC has gone. Dr. Matsanga, thanks so much for staying with us on One Slot. And of course, we're still dealing with discussions on the ICC. And you talked about something of 1998. You said you were a part of the group that established this ICC. Now, African ownership of the court was aided by some of the continent's leaders, which you yourself said. We had South African presidents such as Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki. In fact, Uganda was actually the first country to refer a case to the court. We also have a late Archbishop Emeritus, Desmond Tutu, who once referred to the ICC as Africa's court. This was the quote he said. He said, ICC couldn't be more African if it tried. If it tried. This is saying that the ICC is an African court. Dr. Matsanga, you've been going on and on of this so-called discontent with the ICC and the fact that the cases that have been tried at the ICC are just African. This was late Archbishop Desmond Tutu saying that the ICC is an African court. Why is there so much discontent on what is going on at the ICC presently?
What is going on in the ICC presently is a saga. It's a complete saga. From my place where I'm seated in London, not in Nairobi, as it is being indicated, I want to correct that. And I'm not in Nairobi. So they tell your producer to change that. The ICC itself, as you see, is not a court that gives judgment. It is a diplomatic court. It's a court of diplomats. They just sit together. I have attended all Assembly of State Party conferences. We vote by, by liking each other. We don't vote on merit. We don't select people on merit. We say, this one is now for Africa. We sit down. So what is going on in the ICC, for example? Let's do one case. The first case of Uganda, for example, was a mess, a total mess. It is the first case that made me to jump out and say, I will shout until today. It is the first case in that court that made me to hate this court up to the end of my life on planet Earth. This case was wrongly investigated. Mr. Rui Moreno Campo came to Africa, looked for black people, dark ones, and the brown ones like Dr. Matsanga were not touched. Yes, who are Bantu. Then looked for Luo Nilotics from the north and took them. He investigated the whole place. In Uganda, he took one side. Let me go to other cases. The cases of Kenya, for example, was worse. He took the tall one, those who are taller, those are shorter, he took them. No evidence was never done. And the amount of money that was collected was huge. Let's come to another case. I've told you already the case of Quatara and Babuko. Quatara was not shooting people with the water. Quatara was shooting with bullets, copper. He was also a commander of an army that was shooting, and Babuko was the commander of the army. And if you look at the Quatara, the Ivory Coast case, it collapsed because there was no evidence. You left one person behind, and the Babuko, it is just a punishment. Look at the case of Sudan, Bashir. We went to Sudan. As we speak, I was one of the few people with Mbeki who went to Sudan to create peace. Peace has returned in Sudan. Why do you carry now a leader of Sudan to take him to the Hague to do what? Why don't we try Mr. Bashir in Khartoum? Let's go and look at the case of Libya. In Libya, the ICC selected Gaddafi's children, but left the terrorists, General Khalifa Haftar, who has taken part of Libya in Benghazi. Why has he not been given a warrant of arrest? Selected justice. Let's go to Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. Look at the drama in Congo. There is no Congolese soldier paid by the Congolese government who is in that court. The people who are in the court are rebels. Bosco Ntaganda, Thomas Lubanga, Pierre Bemba, and others who have been arraigned in court. But there is no single Congolese Democratic Republic of Congo Army general who commanded, who also killed people in a battle with the rebels who has been arraigned in court. Let's go. Let's go. Let's look at Central African Republic. Show me one of the commanders who is in the army of the Central African Republic who has been taken to court. None. They have only taken the rebels.
Now,
So
Dr. Matsanga, if you talk about these injustices, if we go back to January 17, the African Union adopted a non-binding resolution calling for member states to abandon the ICC. But till today, Dr. Matsanga, Burundi is the only African country that has opted out. Do you think we still have that growing momentum to leave the ICC? And why is it that with all these injustices that you have lifted out, only Burundi out of the member states opted out from the ICC, the rest are still there? Even South Africa that talked about withdrawing from the ICC has not fully left the ICC. So what exactly is going on if you're mentioning all these injustices going on?
My sister, that is a very good question. And I'm proud to tell you, frankly, the man talking to you here is the man who advised the president, the late President Nkurunziza, to quit. I wrote the English together with my lawyer, Chief Taku. We visited Bujumbura, and Nkurunziza agreed to quit ICC. And Article 127 of the Rome Statute. And the whole thing is this. Time has come, Rita, for Africans to speak out. If you don't speak out, and you have a very terrible African Union chairperson, the man who comes from Chad, a useless guy who has killed our African Union. He has destroyed the African Union. He has sold our union to the French. What the French want him to do is what he does. We want an African Union headed by people who have got the knowledge, the know-how to defend the continent of Africa. We want an African Union who can pass resolutions that are binding. We have the leadership on the continent. We have read the same books like Mr. Dr. Muhammad Faki. We have also got the papers like Dr. Muhammad Faki. We shall challenge him in 2024 when the slot comes out. We are not going to keep quiet and watch our African Union diluted by people both paid, supported by the French. We have no words for that. We created this union to help African presidents. Under Article 127 of the Rome Statute, Rita, if you find the marriage is not good, you withdraw. The marriage can divorce if your wife is beating you every night, if your husband is beating you every night and telling you to sleep in the bedroom, in the sitting room instead of the bedroom. Do you stay there?
But
No.
Dr. Matsanga, the African Union is made up of member states which have their presidents. So does it mean they are also complicit in all of this? Because you're talking about the African Union, even though there's a leadership of under Macky Sall or Musa Faki Mohammed, we still have member states under the African Union. Are they also complicit of all of this?
He is our cleric officer, but he has become a president of Africa. Mr. Muhammad Faki is our clerk, is the clerk of African heads of state. Our union, he must write notes and notify us. And what we discuss as Africans, he must carry them. Instead, he has taken over the leadership as if he's the president of Africa, which is very wrong. He has not emphasized Article 127 of the Rome Statute by saying the Rome Statute said if there are differences that cannot be solved, you write to the United Nations Secretary General and tell the Secretary General 2 years in advance and say, Article 127, I am sorry, the marriage has broken down and I've left. He has not emphasized that to the people. And two, the blame comes to African countries themselves. And I want to blame the other 33 countries that are still remaining there. They are coming to collect you. As long as you have all these crimes that you commit after elections, as long as you have bad elections on the continent of Africa, the International Criminal Court, Rita, will come to fetch these guys like some chicken that has fallen in the water in Africa.
Dr. Matsanga, you're definitely very passionate about this injustice at the ICC, which you claim, and to further install your displeasure with the ICC, in a letter documented by you to the United Nations Secretary General, you accused the former chief prosecutors, namely Luis Moreno Ocampo and Fatou Bensouda, of deceit, acting on behalf of international taxpayers, procurement and bribery of witnesses. These are serious allegations you are putting forward against the ICC chief prosecutors. Can you explain why these allegations were raised up and also back your allegations with facts, please?
Thank you very much, Rita. You know what? The former chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is a criminal. He should not walk on the streets of any capital city. He should be arrested. He should be in jail in Belmarsh in Britain. And if he steps there, one of these days, we shall take him down there.
What is your evidence?
Evidence is plenty. He admitted himself he's a gambler. He gambled 17 million. How can your PA, a PA of a personal assistant of a chief prosecutor, have an account with money bigger than the economy of an African country, but bigger than the economy of Burundi, or Central African Republic? How? He was paid by George Soros to come and molest people. He was paid to come to do forensic investigations. Rita, I don't want people to misunderstand me. That I have no problem with the current chief prosecutor, Mr. Karim Khan. I have no problem with him because he was with us. He knows the troubles that we have gone through against Ocampo. Mr. Ocampo and Fatou Bensouda must not be given any job in the world, anywhere. And anyone giving them investigations in Ethiopia where they will bring chaos. These are wrong people. They came and they will listen to civil society. The civil society, political. They politicize ICC. They made ICC a political tool to slaughter those who did not like America, to slaughter those who did not like France, to bring those leaders who are very bad. Why do you take Gaddafi's son, for example, and leave the terrorists who took over Libya? Do you know that the people who took over Libya are terrorists? Why do you leave General Khalifa in Benghazi and you don't give him a warrant of arrest? Why? Tell me. And you are paid money to go and indict Saddam Hussein's, Muammar Gaddafi's son. That case is there. So the chief prosecutor, the former chief prosecutor, not this one, Mr. Karim Khan is a clean guy. He's a very good guy. Because he has grown, he has seen the difficulties of this court. And he's going to face the same problems that I'm talking about. Because America will not allow him to indict anybody who has committed crimes. Imagine an American comes to London and kills 10 people.
Now, you talked about the financial dependence of the ICC. I mean, how can we deal with that? Because you said that is why the United States is still having an impact on the ICC. How can that be dealt with, financial dependence of the ICC?
Exactly. We should have ICC should have its own money. But if you are being paid by America and by George Soros, who is a man who is known for overthrowing a government in Africa and other places, to go and hunt down one leader in Africa or two leaders in Africa, is that justice?
So where will it be funded from? Where will it get its funds from then? Where will ICC get its funds from?
Why can't they, then if we don't get the funds, why do we go there? We should set our own courts. Nigeria has got a Supreme Court. Uganda has got a Supreme Court. African Union should make its own court so that that court can collapse and die quickly. That court is not a court. That's a kangaroo court. It's a Montego Bay. It's Montego Bay of Europe. It is not a court. It's a court that collects Africans. Out of the 41 cases, you have seen how many Africans are there? Are we the only one whom God said we should be there?
But how strong, Dr. Matsanga, how strong are the African courts that you talk about? Because the reason why the International Criminal Court was set aside was to make sure that no crime was unattended to, and this is what you said. So how independent, how strong are the African courts that you're talking about, the member state courts? How strong are they? Because we know what we are facing in Africa. We see the problems going on, and this is why the International Criminal Court is going on. So how strong would you say they are?
They are good courts in Africa. There are good courts in Kenya. There are good courts in South Africa.
That are not inflicted by the executive, because these are the problems that we have in Africa, where we have the executive running over the judiciary or running over the legal system. Would you actually say that they are independent of that?
Then, Rita, what is the difference with the court of ICC being run over by America?
So where is the way forward? Because you're saying we should have African courts.
The only thing, that is what I've been fighting for, Rita. Today, this is my favorite subject. What I've been fighting for in life is to have an African court of justice. I don't care when it will happen, how it will happen. I want Africans to be tried on the African soil, period.
Okay, all right.
I don't want Africans, no. Let me finish this point. I don't want Africans to be shipped. We were shipped as slaves. We are taken as slaves, as commodities.